I love Colombia. It's awesome.
It's all this confusion, not this to me.
It was always my favourite song to play live. Always.
I just like it because it's got a bit of a groove in it as well.
And they don't change. It just keeps going. Three chords, it's just grooving along.
Alright, it's Liam. I want to thank everyone at the Oasis podcast. As you were.
We're going to go back to our Oasis A to Z, and we're going to go to Colombia. Now, Colombia is a very important song. It's a big one in the history of Oasis. It's a big one in the history of the Oasis podcast as well, to be honest. It's a song that there has been multiple versions of, multiple bootlegs of. So this is kind of the ideal situation, really, for an Oasis A to Z, because there's plenty to say. There's plenty to pick up on about this song, Colombia. Oh, and I also have in my collection, thank you to Brian Garcia, an unreleased version of Colombia, recorded at Eden Studios. I've dropped in clips of it on a previous episode, and I'm going to do a couple of clips of it on here as well. But anyway, before all that, let's cross over to Ian from the tribute band Colombia, The Sound of Oasis, for his full breakdown.
Hi everybody, Oasis podcast. Hi James and everybody listening. It's Ian here up in Edinburgh from Colombia, the Oasis tribute band, doing a bit of a breakdown for Colombia, which makes a lot of sense, seeing as it's what our band's called. I know James doesn't particularly like the song, so I feel like I've got to stand up for it a bit, and I've kind of made some notes and just want to go through it a bit. And also I'll break the song down in some different versions of it. I love Colombia. It's like my go-to song, especially like live versions. I see it as being a bit like Gas Panic's kind of younger brother, because Gas Panic has loads of like feedback and sort of weird sounds and stuff going through it. It's quite a long song as well, and also the structure of Gas Panic is quite similar to Colombia. Gas Panic is pretty much based around 3 chords, as is Colombia. I know there's 5 chords in Gas Panic, but the majority of it is the same 3 chords. It's the things that I love about Colombia are, it's the first song that Oasis jammed with Noel when he went down on that Sunday afternoon instead of watching the football. It was the first taste that we got of an official release in '93, when they cut the original white label and took it down to Radio 1. It got like 50 airplays, which I think was pretty significant at the time. And also it's the first song that they played at those massive 1996 summer gigs of Nebworth, Loch Lomond and in Cork. I love the fact that it's based around a song a house sort of Manchester tune called Tortuga, I think that's how you pronounce it, by Axe Corner. And if you dig it out, it is on YouTube. It's quite hard to find, but it's essentially it is pretty much Colombia but without words on it. It's quite cool to hear it actually. That is on Tortuga, the sort of main riff from Colombia, if you like, the main reprised riff is directly ripped from this sort of 89 to 91, whatever it was released, like house tune that would have been playing at the Hacienda at the time. Even Tony's drum sounds like it's kind of like got that 808 Roland sort of housey, techie sort of new order almost like sound. Doesn't really come across on Definitely Maybe. It sounds a bit more traditional rock. But if you hear Oasis like 94, 95, especially when Mark Coyle's still mixing them, you can really, like, Live by the Sea is quite a good example, and also Wolverhampton Civic Hall, if you can find that on YouTube. Tony's drum pattern is like, it's like house sort of hi-hat drum pattern. It's like all the way through. And nobody plays it like Tony, in my opinion. I think the way that he plays it absolutely nails it. Another couple of things that I find interesting about the recording of the album version as well is, like, for me, the biggest thing and one of the best parts of the song is actually Bonehead's guitar, and especially the first A chord. And I think it's quite simplistic to say, oh, it's just quite a boring, dull song, so it's just 3 chords all the way through. But I don't know, Bonehead had a knack for playing those 3 chords, and what he does really well is he's got such a dry guitar sound. It's like, sounds quite condensed, and it comes through as a real. He doesn't strum through, like, again, when he plays it in the latter years, like 2001, 2004, when they reintroduced it to the set, again, kind of strums it. Bonehead just plays A, D, C, no reverb, nothing on. It's just dry guitar. All of the reverb comes out of his Epiphone, which he's still using at the moment with Liam. Also, what I like about it is it uses falsetto, and the kind of, I don't know why, but Oasis, Nolan is writing anyway, sort of stepped away from using falsetto for quite a period. It's in Up in the Sky, obviously. It's in She's Electric, and it's like, it's a key component of this song. It's really similar to Important to Being Idle. Important to Being Idle, when it goes, I sold my soul, and it goes up and then down, it comes through so strongly, and quite powerfully after the falsetto. That's the same with Columbia. So it's I can't tell you, and it comes down really low. Also, the falsetto part of it, that in the mix, or if you hear it, especially on the remastered versions when it comes through, that's actually that's the main vocal. The bit that Liam sings live, or the pitch that Liam sings live, is actually like the backing vocal. But they have mixed that up live, and that's just how they do it and how they sing it live.
There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. I can't tell you the way I feel, because the way I feel is oh so new to me. I can't tell you the way I feel, because the way I feel is oh so new to me.
Griggs' bass line is really interesting as well on this, and again, he just plays root notes. There's nothing fancy at all. But I remember seeing an interview, or hearing an interview with Owen, and he talks about Griggs' bass, about how in the live setting it worked really well, his sound, but in the studio, because I don't know what it was, but Griggs is playing with a pick, and the top end was coming through, it was really twangy. So what Owen did was he took all of the top end off the bass recording, basically, and you get this real, like, dubby, heavy, like, bass note coming through. It's again, it's like quite house music-y in the way that it comes through. And when Bonehead's playing just A, D and C with no strumming at all, just chords and letting it ring, Griggs' bass comes through as dum 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 dum, and it's like, again, it's like got a real sort of, this tune in particular has got a really housey influence on it. So going to the song and how the song is played, Bonehead's part or Gem's part is quite simple and straightforward. It's basically guitar through a Marshall amp, no reverb or effects on it at all. It's just straight A, D and C, and you can either play it as one chord and just strum it the once, or you can do repeated strum. So and Noel's leads are all in, might be corrected on this, but I think it's an A minor pentatonic. And basically there's 4 parts to Noel's leads. So there's, at the beginning part, there's like a little almost blues riff that he plays with hammer-ons and bends, which is something like this. So it starts with Bonehead on the A, and then Noel comes in with and that is, so on the 4th string you hammer on from the 5th fret to the 7th, and then on the 3rd string, your G string, you hammer on 5th to the 7th as well. So, and then bend that 7th fret, and then down back to the 5th. So, and then another hammer on the 4th. It's all based around the 5th to the 7th fret on the D and G string. So it's and hammer on, and then he does this little glissando between a C like triad chord and a D triad chord, which is basically just flattening the B string, G string and D string on the 5th fret, sliding up to the 7th, back down. So and then another hammer on. So and then what I play is a little G and A bend on the top, the bottom E string, and an open 5th A string, which Noel sort of threw in Nebworth, but then it just adds a bit of body and a bit of extra beef or extra weight to the live version, because you let the A string ring out while you repeat the riff, so it would go something like this. So that, letting that A ring out while Bonehead plays it is A, D and C, and Griggs does as well. Just adds an extra oomph and almost like a different texture and layer on top of the guitar playing. So it's something like this. Into the verse. Now the second part of that Noel plays is the riff that's stolen from Tortuga. So it's this kind of, again it's in A, it's all around the 5th to 7th frets, and on the G string and the D string, and you'll know the riff. It goes like this. So it's the same phrase repeated over and over. So you go from I think Noel actually plays it slightly different live, but he plays the same notes, but he plays it across the 10th and 12th frets, raised up the couple of strings. This is how I play it. This sounds the same. So you play G string, 7th fret, D string, 7th fret, and then down to the G string again on the 6th fret. So it's the actual notes are D, A, C sharp. It sounds a bit like this. And then 7th, 5th on the D string. So that's repeated. The last time, it's 7th fret G string, 7th fret D string, and then instead of to the C sharp, which is the 6th fret on the G string, it's to the C. So that goes something like this. So. And then in the second verses of the live versions in particular, there's a couple of different routes that Noel takes. One of them is he plays an A along with what Gem's doing, but then he will pick out a D suspended second and then pick out a C add 9 and kind of arpeggiate it. So this is especially what he did when the song was reintroduced to the set in the 2000s. It goes something like this, really. And also at Nebworth, he liked to throw in a few unison bends up at the top end on the around the 17th fret, so an A but an octave higher than the rest of the song. So, and he also does this towards the end of the song as well. So doing lots of unison bends basically, and throwing a bit of delay on. So it creates the sound that there's more than one guitar going on, and again it's just about filling the sound out and beefing up the sound. Then there's another little riff on the album version which isn't played live, which again is in the A minor pentatonic scale. Lots of bends around the 7th and 5th fret of the G and the D string, lots of bending and hammering on. So it kind of starts with a bend on the G and then kind of goes like this. So that's bending the 7th fret on the G string and then down to a 5th, hammering back onto the 7th, then off again. So, and then onto the D string on the 7th fret. And then it's a bend on the 7th of the G. And then it moves on the A string of the 5th fret and kind of works its way back up the scale. So it's and then there's a riff which heads down to the bottom end of the scale, and it's lots of bends around the bottom E string and the A string, and it sounds quite cool. It's really heavy as well, and that goes something like this. and that's starting off by bending the 3rd fret on the bottom E, and then letting the A string play open, and then the 3rd and the 5th fret of the A string, and then hammering on between the 3rd and 5th fret of the A string. And then the last part bends the 5th of the A string, 5th fret of the A string, then down to the 3rd fret, basically. And then the live version is finished by a lot of unison bends and playing with the feedback and the come on, yeahs towards the end, and it finishes with the main Tortuga riff of. And that's the breakdown of Columbia. So thanks very much, cheers, and speak to you again.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Ian. Greatly appreciated, and really good breakdown. And if you guys are looking for an Oasis tribute band, you can't go far wrong with Oasis tribute band Columbia, the sound of Oasis. So we did a poll on it, as we always do, and interestingly it came out as 5 out of 5 got 61%, 4 got 30%, 3 got 6%, and 2 got 3%. So overall that gives it 4.49. Now, where does that put it in the overall rankings of what we've done so far? It puts it just behind Cast No Shadow, Acquiesce, and Champagne Supernova. So it's currently in 4th. So it'll be interesting to see how it holds up with some amazing songs that are coming up as well. Can it hold on to 4th spot? We've got Come On Feel the Noise, Do You Want to Be a Spaceman? Do you know what I mean? Digsy's Dinner, Don't Go Away, Don't Look Back in Anger. So I think a couple of those could definitely have a good chance of knocking Columbia down a couple of places. So that was a great breakdown from Ian. Let's also see what you guys said about it. Matt M. Fortet said 5, especially the white label, raw and confident, amazing song. Richard Bowe said impossible to take without context. It was the start of everything. Ray Mitchell says 5. It means a release to me, that dumb build up and then kabam, everyone bouncing, everyone in the same moment, the simple chords, rhythm, beat, never getting laboured. Then it leaves you away to find another, left with the memory. Wow, that was beautiful. Well done, Ray. Ian, who we've just heard from, it's got to be a 5. Just putting my tuppence worth on a breakdown. It's the younger brother of Gas Panic, a 3-chord brag. The first tune they jammed, the first song at Nebworth, so much to discuss. Katie Georgiou says 5. Sometimes I think it's my favourite. Lardino said 5. The best there was and the best there ever will be. Bonehead's Fringe said it's the heartbeat, the soul, and a live favourite of Oasis. Barrowland's 2001 version was amazing. P.S. Anyone got a lead guitar tab for the white label demo version? If you've got that, then drop it over to Bonehead's Fringe. Wayne Howarth said 3. I just find it doesn't go anywhere and the lyrics just go on. Sorry. I'm kind of with you on that one, Wayne. Kim Murray, 5. Absolute tune and just so Oasis. I think I was tricked into singing my fave tunes by Marcus, and Chris sang along to keep me going. I blame it on the rum and cokes. Okay. Andrew Middleton says 5. Such an incredible track and in my top 3 Oasis tunes. Feels amazing blasting through headphones walking down the street. I love songs like this because of this song, e.g. Anemone by Anton Newcomb. I'll take your word on that one. We Are DNA said elsewhere and voted in the poll, but I'll say it here too. It's a 2. Proper boring. I wouldn't go that far. Thomas Moen said easily a 5. Slow, funky, methodical slab of a rock song brilliance. Will Cooper, my old mate from school, and whose fault all of this is because he lent me the Oasis tape that got me into Oasis. I think I even remember telling you it was my favourite when I made you that tape which started all these shenanigans. So yeah, it's the best. 5. Yes, it was always Will's favourite because He was always cooler than I was. Dan Wild says 5, one of my all-time favourites. This has one of the best grooves. It just keeps going and going. For me, the classic Oasis sound. Great vocals, love it. Ben at 20 and 2, who you heard from earlier. 5, just to annoy you and get it as high up as possible. Thank you very much. Donald Nathaniel Bletherington Schmidt QC at Don Nathaniel QC. I'm not reading your name again. Boner describes it best. Hypnotic. 5 out of 5. Your name was longer than your message. Dennis Silstra, the intro, the groove, the feedback, the nonsense-like lyrics, the voice, the harmony, the outro, all pure perfection. Britpop Memories asked white label or demo. White label, demo or album version. And then came back and said, to be honest, both are a 5 for me, but I prefer the demo. Didi Arnaud said, back in the day, the best value and loudest song on the jukebox. Andrew Middleton asked about the vocal sample at the start, and we'll get into that in a bit. Smitty 3x3 said 5, the opener to my first Oasis gig, Loch Lomond, plus my dad's favourite Oasis song, Barrowland's live version is incredible. And Wardy, who is Wardy Allah, said class live in Chicago as well. Neil Hogg says 5, and I was at that Barrowlands gig. Gary Ilston said 5, like Acquiesce, the song perfectly complements the style of Oasis. Sang separately, it somehow misses a vital cog. The magic of Oasis was how they both brought their unique style to the party. Gerard McGee says can't talk about Columbia without mentioning this tune, and he added in the Ace Corner Tortuga. Stuart Pegg says 5, one of my top 3 heritage songs, opener for iconic gigs, go back to it several times a week. Republic of Mancunia said used to sing this to the girlfriend, bladdered on the pub karaoke circa 1996. Total embarrassment to her, but was still going strong 24 years later and belting it out in the car, embarrassing the kids. Fair play. Well done, Republic of Mancunia. Chiswick Fox said easy 5. Stevie Tooy said 5. I was also at the Barrowlands gig, but for me, Live by the Sea version edges it. Just live this song and live this song and never tire of hearing it. The drums and bass at the start, wow. Noel's guitar, wow. And Liam's vocals, wow. Brian Mead says it's 4 out of 5. The penny didn't properly drop until I watched the Barrowlands version. Can see why it was on Songbird single. That's true, actually. That version is special. We'll get to that. Matty Bryant gave it a 5. Barry Miho, 5. That's all I can say. I can't tell you the way I feel. Eamon Matei gave it a 5. All Things Oasis, 5 out of 5 easily. As You Kev, 5, and wouldn't have looked out of place on a Stone Roses LP. David Strang, up there with anything else they've done. The closest they got to a Roses style dance groove. Been one of my go-to records pre-post going out for 20 odd years. Big 5 from me. Kyle Gustafsson said, there we were, now here we are. Easily a 5, one of the best Liam vocals. The LA number 1 band in London 2020 is a band called The LA, apparently. 5, no one ever did a track like this or will do again. That's why we want them back. Unique. Nick Hutchins said 5, banger. Lee Holland said 5. Daniel GB said easily a 5, by far the best Oasis song. Columbia Live at Barrowlands is quality. JD Johnny Big Ears said 5, best Oasis tune by a street. Marcus Marsden said I can't tell you the way I feel. That's fine, Marcus, up to you. I'm not going to force you. Andrew Bridge says 5. Daz1903 said has to be the white label demo version, outstanding. First Oasis song I heard, and I imagine for many others fans my age it's a straight 10. I love the white label version of it as it's raw. It always one of the highlights from any set the band played. Nice to see Liam playing it live again, as the track is best appreciated live. We Are DNA, one of those songs old school fans rave about, particularly the live experience. I've not seen it live myself, so it's a real dirge. Shoddy lyrics, some nice guitar bits, but it's way too long. I've skipped it more often than I've played it. 4 out of 10 or 2 out of 5. The Wheel of Doom, my joint favourite song, The Soul of Oasis. Sean Byrne, not a massive fan of the album version, but live it's a classic. Best live performance for me has to be Nebworth 96, since having the bootleg for that show years ago, just before the drums kick in. Supernova Dragon says, I think I'm in the minority, but the album version bores me. Same drony guitar, same boring lyrics, and feels like any number of songs could have fit better with the album. Live it works well, but the album version is boring beyond belief, and I usually skip it, to be honest, too. Trevor Duncanson, in my top 5. When I'm trying to get someone into Oasis for the first time, this is the song I give them to check out. Classic Oasis. Soul Driver, a big song for me, as I was here from the moment it was played as a white label demo. One for the jukebox every time. Wheel of Doom, there's a reason why the lads chose this banger to open their biggest ever gigs back in 96. It's just in your face, rock and roll swagger, A chord, D chord, C chord, bosh. Liam O'Hare says best in live. When they open with it at Loch Lomond, amazing. When Liam does it, also amazing. On record, wee bit boring. Kevin James Wood, 10 out of 5 for Columbia. Colin Finlayson, the white label version is the definitive one. Hearing it on Radio 1 was how it all started for me. The perfect bridge from Manchester to Britpop. Greg Duncanson says, seriously, probably one of my absolute favourites, pure fucking energy. And Clarkey, will finish with him. Easy 5. It's one of those where the studio version is okay, but live it just transcends those 3 simple chords and becomes something otherworldly. It's not just a song. Now, yes, I take all of those arguments. And as I say, the interesting thing about this is music is objective. I've talked about this song a lot. It's probably one of the most controversial kind of things that comes back to me quite a bit about the podcast is at various points I've talked about the fact that I'm not a big fan of Columbia. I don't particularly rate it. I wouldn't have included it on Definitely Maybe. I wouldn't have included it as the first release. I do prefer Digsy's Dinner and other sort of jaunty songs like Bono's Bank Holiday and Step Out and things like that. I think are better songs than Columbia. But it is interesting and it's about context, and there's some really, really interesting points there. I think when you think about it in the context of that rave song at Tortuga, yes, it is basically a dance song. It is a song that was to being from guys that went to the Hacienda and listened to that sort of music and were into the Happy Mondays and that kind of groove that was going on with a simple chord sequence and just a cool vocal and a cool groove. And I get that. Like, it's just not my favourite sort of thing. I'm not a massive Mondays fan. I like the Mondays. But even the Monday stuff I like tends to be the sort of poppier stuff rather than the dancier stuff. For me personally, I'm more of a into classic, well-written, well-constructed songs that are dynamic and change and have lots of different things going on, not just like lock into a groove sort of music. So it's just not my thing, personally. That said, I can completely understand all the people that love it and do vibe off it and just do think it's great and the way it locks in. And I completely agree, live, it is a different beast. I've seen it live at least once, which was Nebworth, 1996. And it really annoyed me because it wasn't one of my favourite songs. I was so excited about seeing Oasis at Nebworth, and I'm really ready for them to come on. What they're going to play. It's been an incredible day so far. We've seen the Chemical Brothers and the Bootleg Beatles and the Manic Street Preachers and Ocean Colour Scene and the Prodigy, who were absolutely amazing. And there they are. There's Oasis. And what happens? Columbia. One of my least favourite songs. I was like, oh, okay. And it was just a bit, for me, it was like deflating in that moment when I just wanted it to be something like Rock and Roll Star or something like that would just really kick off, and it was Columbia. But, you know, as a few people said, it. I think maybe if you were there from the white label demo, if that was your first experience of Oasis, was hearing that tune, then absolutely I would get why that would mean a lot. And I think for the guys in the band, I think it probably means a lot, having jammed that out. So yeah, I completely understand how some people it is their favourite Oasis song. But yeah, for me, it's just not my sort of thing, and it doesn't have a special place in my heart like the way a lot of them do. So yeah, it's not one of my favourites, but I completely understand why so many of you guys do love it. Let's just dig into this tune a little bit more, shall we? So Columbia was the first song that Noel wrote with Oasis. Now the songwriting of it is very contentious because it comes from an initial groove that they were sort of sitting out and jamming out together, and then they go into Eden Studios with the real people, and what was sort of started out as kind of a instrumental track, then they're working with the Griffiths brothers, and Liam's maybe coming up with some lyrics, Chris Griffiths is coming up with some lyrics, they come up with that vocal, and the fact it's credited as being written by Noel when we're pretty sure that a good chunk of it was actually written by Chris Griffiths and Liam feels a bit wrong that it's credited to Noel 100%. I would recommend you go back to my interview with Chris Griffiths. And one of the other things that I talked to Chris Griffiths about on the interview I did with him was the samples. Now, this is very interesting for Oasis. You know, once again, people think of as like a out and out rock and roll band, don't do anything weird or different or dancey or weird samples in it. So effectively there's 3 samples going on. So the intro has a sample saying, "I've sinned so much to disgust, mother, take me into your arms, how am I to protect you?" It was on a CD randomly that Chris Griffiths owned, and we don't know what it is. When I spoke to him, I said, like, do you think you could have a dig around and find out what they were? And he basically said, no, he's just got hundreds and hundreds of CDs in his office. And anyway, so maybe that's one for the future generations to find, but we will never probably know what that is. There's also like a Hare Krishna style chant. Once again, it's something else from a sample CD, or he said he would just pick up these random CDs, and if it looked interesting, and he would take bits from them. There's a sample then as a male voice saying, "Take away the noise of your songs, to the melody of your harps I will not listen." So this is from the book of Amos in the Bible. The line is then looped, over which another sample of the same voice says, "Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream," which is also from that same book of the Bible.
Take away from me the noise of your song. Take away the melody of your harp. Take away from the melody of your harp. Justice flows down like waters. Just like it flows down like waters. Just like it flows down like waters. Righteousness like an ever-flowing stream.
And then they also were recording the radio, and it happened to be that Tony Benn was doing a speech live at the time, so they just recorded this bit of Tony Benn's speech off the radio, and they put that in there as well, which is very cool because the end of Arm the Walrus did a similar thing where they've got that bit of speech just recorded off the radio, so it kind of is a bit of a callback to the Beatles that they did that. So I thought that was great. You know, it's interesting, if they'd stayed like working with the real people, it's a sort of an interesting one that actually, could they have done more stuff like that? Could they have done more samples and more things of that nature? But, you know, didn't go that way. But there you go. So one of the points that was made that was quite interesting, that Ian made, was that in the vocal, you've got so the melody is pretty straightforward. You've got "There we were, now here we are," which they joked was like, you can tell it was written with Scousers. "There we were, now here we are."
We were at the Real People studio in Liverpool, and somebody went, as somebody always does, "Hey la, you want to write some fucking words for that?"
The version of Columbia sounds exactly like some of the 8-track versions, so I'm not sure whether they took some of the 8-track version and put it onto 24-track and embellished on it. I'm not really sure.
All I remember about the night is there was a lot of acid taken. Everyone was tripping, weren't they?
He was just playing all the way fucking through, just riffing all the way through without any fucking sense of arrangements or construction or things like that. Tons of ideas, obviously fucking loads of ideas, but, you know, no fucking sense of how to make a record.
Everyone was tripping in the studio. We'd done the demo that subsequently ended up getting about 50 plays on fucking Radio 1, all cabbaged beyond fucking belief.
All this confusion, nothing to say to me. There we were, here we are. All this confusion, nothing to say to me. And then I suppose you'd say the chorus is, I can tell you the way I feel, because the way I feel is oh so new to me. And that's it. I mean, that's the only melody in the song. One of the points that Ian makes is that, especially the way they produce it live, Liam is actually more doing the backing vocal, really, because he's doing that lower vocal line, I can tell you the way I feel, whereas Noel's doing the I can tell you the way I feel, because as a falsetto, which is interesting. However, one of the interesting points on the unreleased Eden track that Brian Garcia has let me play a bit of is that we have Liam doing the falsetto. So let's have a bit of that. Another cool point on that front is that before we move off that unreleased version, we have this cool bit where Liam goes like "yah yah yah," which is weird, but anyway, it's worth including just because it sounds a bit weird. So yeah, other than that, the Eden version is relatively similar to what was released as the white label demo. And then we have the overall released version, which, I mean, it is super cool the way it starts. The way it kind of, you have that smoky, kind of moody intro. It is a very interesting way to start a song. What we got there is relatively straightforward chord sequence that just repeats over and over again, A, C and D all the way through. With that, there we were, now here we are section, that I can't tell you the way I feel section, and then at the end we have this come on, come on, come on, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's funny, on the record, actually that is relatively muted. It's quite low in the mix, and it takes ages to kick in. Like, I think of it as being, because, you know, I generally think of the song in its live form, and you sort of assume it happens a lot earlier, but actually the song's almost finished by the time it kicks in, and it kind of almost fades in as well. It's not like it suddenly kicks in, like when you hear it live and then they suddenly start singing, come on, come on, come on, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's actually like 5 minutes and 10 seconds into the song, and it just sort of, it's just there in the background. It's weird. Of a song, well, strange in that it is so simple and so basic, yet, you know, so effective for so many people. It was their first gig with Noel Gallagher, and it was there all the way through '94. Typically being played second after Rock and Roll Star. And as we say, it was played at those big shows in 1996. And then after being played in Cork in August 96, it's then dropped. So it's not played at all on the Standing on the Shoulder of Giants tour. It's not played on the Be Here Now tour. It comes back in May 2001 in America with Steve White on drums. And it's played all through 2002, Heathen Chemistry tour. Played in 2003 all the way through to the Berlin Arena show, March 2003. And then it's played at the Pool Lighthouse June 23rd, and Glastonbury 2004 is the last time they played it. And it has been covered by a few different artists. It's been covered by a band called the Asian Kung Fu Generation, which are a very cool band actually that do a lot of anime sort of music from Japan and are big fans of Oasis. So they're worth checking out. And it's also been covered by Weezer as well, another band that's a massive fan of Oasis. Rivers Cuomo is a massive Oasis fan. I'd love to speak to him on the podcast. And of course Liam Gallagher's played it. He's played it 47 times. First played at the Round Chapel in June 2019, and he recently played it at the last Paris gig, February 21st this year. Now lyrically, let's have a look at it. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. Is it nothing's the same to me, or is it nothing to say to me? I think it is nothing's the same to me. You know what? I think for the last 25 years I've been singing nothing to say to me. But no, it's nothing's the same to me. I can't tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is oh so new to me. So what's going on here? It feels like a sort of a relationship that's in a difficult place. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. It feels like they're going through a difficult relationship, and struggling to sort of figure out where they are. I can't tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is oh so new to me. So is it a relationship where they thought it was a friendly relationship and now it's becoming a romantic relationship, or is it that it's a romantic relationship that's going into a bad place? Let's move on. What I heard is not what I hear. I can see the signs, but they're not very clear. Yeah, so maybe it is that romantic relationship that's going sour there, and he's trying to read signs from the person, but just can't quite get what they're on about. I can't tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is oh so new to me. And then this is confusion. Am I confusing you? Yeah, this is peculiar. We don't want to fool you. So now he's talking about we. So then that feels more like a band thing. Then that does more feel like the band talking to the audience there. We don't want to fool you. But I think it's good, and I think that sort of swirling strangeness of it and the moodiness of the guitars and stuff sort of sum up that confusion and frustration in the lyrics as well. So I think that all comes together as like a moody kind of piece. I think that works really well. And then, as Ian's pointed out, the guitar playing throughout it is really good. We have Barrowlands, which is, I think most people accept the best one. They are absolutely on form. Gem and Andy coming into it, crushing it. Absolutely fantastic version. And then we have Glastonbury. So all in all, does it deserve to be on the album? Well, personally, when I did Definitely Maybe Reassembled, I said no, I didn't include it on the album, which is sacrilege, I know, but I did drop it. Initially, my thinking was that as a punky, fast album, this kind of slows everything down. But actually, on albums you do want peaks and troughs, and Definitely Maybe isn't a punk album. There are kind of 5-6 minute long songs on there, and it is a in the position where it is on the album, coming after Up in the Sky and before Supersonic. Maybe you do want something that's a bit cooler, a bit longer, with a bit more attitude and stuff between those two songs. But personally, I would have dropped it. As I've said when I spoke to McGee about it, I think it was a very strange choice, having that as the first thing released from the album. as the white label demo. However, it worked. It got played a bunch of times on the radio and started this buzz going at who this band were. But yeah, personally, I don't think it's representative of their sound. When people say like, "Oh, this is pure Oasis," I don't think it is pure Oasis. I think it's very different, and it's not what Oasis are to me. Oasis to me is much more something like Live Forever or Slide Away or Up in the Sky, or some might say that is much more the Oasis sound to me. This is not, to me, the Oasis sound. But, it's obviously a big part of them. But they didn't go on to do, another 10 tracks like this. This is a bit of an anomaly, so it's not one that I would say that is the song I would point to as being Oasis at all. But, McGee loved it, and so hence that's why they did go with it as that first release. And as I said, it worked. It got them that play, and maybe it did work really well because it was almost a bridge between that Manchester Stone Roses, Happy Mondays kind of trippier, dancier sound before we then get into the rock and roll stars and stuff, pushing onto that different sound, that Britpop sound that was less connected to the Manchester sort of scene. So, it is kind of a bridge between those two worlds, I think. And for that reason, I think it works really well. I just don't think it's that good, but there we go. If you would like to chip in on Columbia, then do feel free to get in touch. It's the usual address, oasispod@gmail.com, or hit me on Twitter @oasispodcast. And yeah, look forward to joining in the conversation with you over there. Oh, one more thing, we did have this little note come in from our good friend Louise at stopcryingyourheartout.com on Columbia.
Columbia. This was the first song I ever heard by the band, and I'd say it's probably the same for thousands of other fans. It's been one of my favourites for over 25 years. It's been my alarm on my phone for years. It's the first thing I hear when I wake up. I loved hearing this song live in the early days, as you could easily hear every member of the band with ease. It's a right stomper of a track with a bit of a groove that you want to go on and on forever.
Thank you very much for listening. Stay in touch, stay engaged.